Hey, really, you're welcome. Just getting things set up here. It's been a little while since I've gone live. Hey, Jan, welcome. Wait a little bit longer, see if a few more folks hop on. Can you guys hear me all right? If anybody that's in the chat, if you can let me know if my audio is coming through, okay? That'd be awesome. Thank you, Jan. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Colleen. Welcome to the live. I'm gonna try and wait a minute or two before I get going with anything too big. One thing that I want to try as more people come on, if anybody's up to it, if they want to join on voice chat, you totally have the option to do that. It'd be awesome to just chat with any of you guys. It is a whole lot easier for me to talk to someone than to be reading the chat and kind of like talking to myself. So if you feel comfortable, feel totally free to use the link at the bottom and hop on. You don't need to use the camera or anything, uh, but voice chat is perfectly fine. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking. Um, and if anybody has any kind of questions, anything that you want to ask me, you can start dropping that on the chat. That'll make things easier for me as well because that can kind of like guide the way we're going. There are a few things I want to kind of cover, but if anybody has questions too, that I'm happy to talk about those as well. Um, Anything you guys want. The main thing I kind of want to talk about personally is going to be the shutdown. Um, Plus some of the strategies that I'm seeing the Democratic Party talking about, like what they're going for, what demands that they're looking for are, um, and what I think they should be doing or not doing. There are a few things that I'm seeing that are they're kind of concerning to me. I think that um, we might be going down a path that is not gonna do much, and that I wish they'd be doing something different. Um, Especially as it relates to the demands that they're asking for in order to end the shutdown. I think that they're missing a lot of opportunity. So that's kind of like where my mind is. I'm definitely curious about you guys, what you think. Um, if you kind of agree with where my mind is, if you agree with where Democratic leadership is going. For those that don't know, in case anybody isn't following, the main thing they're going for is the extension of the ACA credits that started during COVID. Um, and I can definitely see the merit of that. It's definitely something important because the cost of healthcare is going to skyrocket in a few months. And that's going to hurt a lot of people, even beyond the people that are already going to get hurt by the BBB throwing a ton of people out of Medicaid. But at the same time, I personally think that they could be doing a lot better, and I worry that they're missing a huge opportunity, right? So, like for example, I think the one thing they could be doing has to do with the Epstein files. Um, they they're definitely waiting on that Thomas Massey discharge petition, which is being held up by Pedo Johnson not not bringing in the girl from Arizona, um, and which would be the 218th vote to get the discharge petition going. And but I think that one thing they could do is demand the release of the Epstein files before they fund the government. And I think it's wild that they're not doing that, because one, the Epstein files are on everyone's mind, and you would force the Republicans in a position to have to explain to all of the American people that they would rather keep the government shut than release the Epstein files, right? It kind of like throws away all of the nonsense about oh, we have the oversight committee and all the nonsense that Johnson's talking about. You would just force them in the position, and it's just wild to me that they're not trying to leverage the shutdown for that, because there would be a lot of people that would back them up. Um, hey there, Lori. Great to see you. Haven't seen you in a long time. I feel like it's been like 5 months since I've done one of these. Um, Colleen, the Epstein file massive stuff. She has to be sworn in yet, though. Yes, Steph needs to use that for negotiations. Yeah, I just think that I don't understand why they are not using that as leverage. That would be just an easy win. And I think that Democrats, I don't know if they're afraid. I don't know what the issue is, but there are so many ways that they can put Republicans in a lose-lose position right now, right? So another thing I had thought about is they could just say, hey, if we're going to fund the government, the CR is going to have to write on there that the military cannot be deployed into cities against governors' wishes. And I think that it's wild that they're not doing that. Or ICE cannot wear masks if they're going to be enforcing immigration, right? There's just so many things that a vast majority of the country um, would fall behind Democrats for doing if they were to use them as leverage. And there are things that it would be just impossible for Republicans to say, hey, actually, we would rather keep the government shut than do any of these things. Right. So it's just blowing my mind that Democrats are not using the leverage that they could potentially have. And that's just rather unfortunate. Um, Let me see here. Are the Dems just out of their element, or are they in with the Republicans? Um, that's a complicated question. So I don't think that it's they're in with the Republicans. I think that there are a lot of Democrats, one, that are definitely bought and paid for by the same corporations that donate to Republicans, and that's a big part of the problem. Um, but even more than that, one of the things that I've been kind of like really struggling with recently, and it's one of the things I've written about um, lately, is the realization that I'm coming to that there is a large chunk of the Democratic Party. I guess you'd call them the neoliberals. There's some of them both in the Republican Party and in the Democratic Party, and I just feel that they're sort of like morally bankrupt, right? So I've been harping pretty hard on my writings on Ezra Klein, for example, because I think he's the perfect example of this. These are folks that they seem to be perfectly fine with any outcome, so long as it follows the rules. And what do I mean by that? Um, Klein had a column right after the Kirk shooting, and he was saying that his main take was that Charlie Kirk was doing politics the right way. And here's the problem that I have with that. In my mind, there are things that if you're pursuing, there cannot exist a right way to do it. It doesn't matter how you do it. It doesn't matter if you're doing it with debates. It doesn't matter if you're doing it with bullets. There is no right way to do it, right? So if somebody showed up tomorrow and said, "Hey, actually, I want to bring slavery back. Let's have a debate about it. Let me try to go to college campuses and convince young adults that we should bring slavery back so that they can go and vote for somebody that wants to bring slavery back so that we can then turn back the clock and get enough people in government that want to bring slavery back so that we can put in a new amendment that cancels out the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment so that we can bring slavery back." I don't think that there is a right way to do it. It doesn't matter if you're doing it via debate. It doesn't matter if you're trying to start a civil war. And I think that there is a lot of people in America today that unfortunately take the position that as long as you do it via debate, as long as you do it with the lawyers, as long as you can bring it to the Supreme Court, and as long as it can get rubber stamped, that it's therefore legitimate. And I think that to a large degree, a lot of what we're experiencing today, even the rise of fascism and everything else, has a lot to do with that. Um, I don't know if you all read the one article that I put out, "This is Fascism," about the one document that I had come across from 1945, the Army Manual. Give me a second, I can probably pull it up and show it to you guys. Um, see if I can do it really fast. Yeah, let's see. Let me know if you guys can see the document, and hopefully you can. Might be a little too small. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, there we go. So, so I came across this document, um, and I decided to write the article about it. And one thing that's really interesting, um, I don't like to spend too much time going through it. The first thing that's pretty neat is that it was written back in 1945. And it's kind of ironic because back then the Department of Defense was called War Department, and we just went back to calling it the War Department. So that's kind of some irony there. But so we're still at this point, we're still in 1945, and still fighting World War II, fighting the Nazis. And the thing that I think is most interesting is that you would think that the army, being the army, would make sure the whole saying that when all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, right? So you would think that the army would be saying, hey, the only way you can defeat fascism is by, like, just blowing them up, going to war with them, taking them out. But when you read through the document, that's not even like what they're saying. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but the point that they make is that the best way to fight fascism is to make democracy work well. And to me, that really hit kind of deep, because again, this is the army, and they're saying the best solution for fascism is not war, it's to actually make democracy work for the people. And then if I go further into it, I don't remember the exact spot, but basically they say that the the biggest thing that they would do is try to exploit economic insecurity and exploit people's despair and stuff like that. And when you look at the last 10, 20 years, we see a lot of that, right? We see corporations just like, uh, oh, is it frozen for you guys, for everyone, or is it just for calling? Um, Let me close out my share just in case that's the problem. Y'all just let me know. Um, but it's pretty interesting that they say, making democracy work is the key to defeating fascism. And when you look at the last, again, 10 to 20 years, you see that democracy has not been working for a lot of people. And I think that there have been a lot of people, both on the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, that have sat back and watched a lot of people struggle. And they haven't done much of anything to improve the quality of life of people. And I think that that's a problem. It's a problem that we on the Democratic Party uh, needs to contend with, and we need to commit to deal with, because unless we're going to do that, we're not going to be getting people that we lost recently to come back and vote for the Democratic Party. And I'm not sure how you do that right now with the leadership that we have. I don't know what you guys think, but I I'm not sure what the solution is. Um, yes, to letting the states ask for troops if their government is such a reach, divisiveness, unlawfulness in this current admin. Yeah, it's I don't know how we get there, to get Democrats to really um, open their eyes. Mondani is giving me a lot of hope. The fact that he won the primary gives me a lot of hope. But then at the same time, I see Democratic leadership and their reluctance to get behind him. And that worries me, because there is a lot of people in MAGA who are there because they're disillusioned. But when they see that the leadership of the Democratic Party is not willing to get behind someone like Mondani, who won his primary and who is pushing to actually help the people of New York to do the right thing. He's basically like Bernie. When people in MAGA who could potentially leave MAGA and turn against Trump, they see the Democratic Party like trying to sabotage Mondani and anybody like that. It just pushes them farther into MAGA, I think, because they look at the alternative and they're like, okay, I guess, the Democratic Party, if they see somebody who's promising to do something good for the people, they're just going to shut them down. So it just turns them off. And I don't know how we get the Democratic Party to really become the party of the people. One of the things I've been thinking about is I wish that our side, with the protests that we've been doing, I wish we could get more protests happening uh, to push Democrats to do the right thing. I think it's cool and all to go to an ICE detention facility and to protest outside the ICE detention facility. That's fine. But I don't think it's as productive as it would be if we were to go and protest um, at AG offices, right? Attorneys general offices, and say, hey, you guys need to indict these people that are um, basically violating the rights of our people. Um, or to go to governor's offices and say, hey, what are you guys going to do about all the mass ICE people? Are you guys going to pass a law? I think it's great that Gavin Newsom, passed a law recently that's going to force them to not wear masks, and that's great. I think we should be having protests in every blue state, pushing governors to pass similar laws. And it's a problem that we don't see that. Plus, when we have these protests outside of the ICE detention facilities right now, one thing that concerns me, I kind of try to put on the scale how effective they are, because all these fascists, they're recording them and their friends. I saw the video from Portland the other day where there's a guy on the roof. I don't know if you guys saw it. He was literally just like sniping people with rubber bullets. There was a guy, his back was like full of welts from all the times they shot at him. And that's something that builds morale on their side. And I don't know that we're getting enough exposure of things like that on our side, the general public, to where when we kind of like put on the scale us getting footage of that happening and pushing it to the people that already support us versus them being able to record that and have the show of force and have people know that that's happening and seeing that there's not enough pushback to stop that from happening. I feel like that can be counterproductive in the grand scheme of things. So I kind of wish that we would use our protest power to pressure Democrats to be doing the right thing, as opposed to be demonstrating directly against the fascists who don't care what we have to say. It's not like Donald Trump is going to wake up tomorrow and see, 5 million people in a No Kings march and say, hey, I guess I should be a good guy now. That's not going to happen. Stephen Miller is not going to wake up tomorrow after seeing a march like that and say, hey, I guess I don't want to be a fascist anymore. And at the same time, those marches don't really put any pressure on the people on our side to do the right thing. So I think that to a large degree, there is a lot more that Democrats could be doing in blue states to fight fascism that they're not doing, because we're not putting any pressure on them to do it. Because, let's be honest, right? Doing anything is going to come with a political cost. There's going to be a risk for them to do anything. So I think that when we don't put any pressure on them, and instead we're trying to put a pressure on the fascists who don't care about what we have to say, we're sort of being counterproductive. So I don't know what you guys think. What else? Another thing, of course, for anybody out there, if you have not seen my post about the battle plan to fight fascism, I should probably grab a link for that. I say go check that out. To where are you? I'm gonna grab the link. There you go. Yeah, go check out that link. I have like a little script there that you can reach out to your representatives and your senators, call them every day, especially if you're in a blue state, if you have a Democratic representative or senator, and tell them to, keep the government shut down until until the fascists meet the three demands in the article. And the idea there is to make sure that um, they make those three demands, because I know for a fact that they're never going to cave, but it's going to put them in a position where they are forced to defend the indefensible, right? They're going to have to they're going to be forced to either defend not releasing the Epstein files. They're going to be forced to defend putting military on the streets, and they're going to be forced to defend destroying the economy with these tariffs that are just destroying the economy. And they're never going to cave. But in trying to defend those things, I'm confident that it would all just collapse. Hi there, Nick Roy. You don't trust either side. I don't know if you were here when I started mentioning it, but I get what you're saying. And I was just talking about a couple of minutes ago about how I feel like there is a lot of people in the Democratic Party who are also kind of morally bankrupt, who are pretty much bought and paid for by corporations. They may not be pushing fascism, but they are pushing the kind of corporate corporatism that is driving a lot of the pain that is the grounds for fascism to grow. Even in the article that I just sent out earlier today, one of the things I say there is there's definitely blame to be had on our side for not fighting harder over the last 10, 20 years to make sure that democracy works for everyone. I think that that's where we have our own kind of like burden and recognition that's needed. But yeah, what do you guys think? And by the way, if you're looking to chat, if you're either on X or YouTube, the best place for you to chat will be on Substack. That's the main chat I'm paying attention to. So I might not catch you on any of the other platforms if you're in one of them. Get some water here. But I think one of the most important things that we all have to do is to make sure that we don't lose hope. And that we don't get fatigued, right? I think we're now, 8 months in? There's been a whole lot that's happened since January. With the government shut down, there can be a lot of pain, especially for government workers. If you're probably going to see a lot of GoFundMe's pop up, and if you're able to help folks that are in the federal government that are going to be in some difficult positions, definitely consider that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Anybody in the chat have any ideas or any thoughts about the stuff I talked about so far? More signs on street corners and boycotts. And Joy, Dems need to be pressured to wake up. Sadly, I don't feel they care and are there for power, prestige, and pension, not representing us, but all are serving, mostly old white on both sides. I definitely agree on both counts. Boycotts could definitely be helpful too. I think they're a little bit harder only because it's harder to communicate with everyone and get everybody on the same page. The Jimmy Kimmel thing, I think, worked out really well. but I think that that's because he got so much media coverage that that really helped that take place. I don't know what can be done to drive the media coverage to get enough attention from the public to drive that. Um, One thing that I thought about, and I don't know what you guys think about it. Tell me what you think. I'm really surprised that there's virtually no large cultural figures really talking about everything that's going on. Whether it's in the music industry, whether it's in sports or whatever, there is just such a deafening silence from people that could reach folks who are tuned out from politics. Because I think that that's a big problem too. There are so many people that are so fatigued or who just gave up on politics. They think that it doesn't matter who they vote for, that could be reached if some large public figures who are typically apolitical were to say something. I don't want to name names here, but whether it's like Taylor Swift or I don't know, you pick a name of your favorite pop star or favorite sports uh, personality. Um, I think it would be interesting to have some kind of like a social media push to reach out to folks like that to say, hey, you guys have a big voice, are you going to use it? I think that could be another interesting uh, thing that could be done to push um, something that could create more media coverage, right? What do you guys think about that? Um, there's one thing that I've been thinking about is if we cannot get enough of the people that are tuned out, how do we turn this thing around? Um, one second, I'm just reorganizing something on my screen here. There we go. Um, Share does speak out. I too wish more would speak out, but money drives them too. But who what were they called? Um, Macklemore, he released a song about the whole Gaza thing a few months ago, and man, he got so much publicity when that came out. Like, I feel like there is a ton of money to be made for any pop star, or maybe not so much for the sports folks, but people that have a little bit more independence. I feel like they could make so much money because they would get so much support. Sure, they could be alienating half of their audience, but I have to believe that any average star out there, if they get on record and they start talking about all the fascism going on and all that, man, people would be buying their stuff so much that even if they lost half their audience, that they'd still be good. I don't know. Um, I'm gonna have to look into Cher. I haven't seen too much from her. Uh, Not that she hasn't done anything, just that I haven't looked into it. Um, Even if they did benefit concert to raise money for any of the things, ACLU, government workers would also, that would be a good one right there, right? If the government shut down, I think it'd be awesome if some of these artists were to put on some concerts just to raise funds for government workers that are going to be impacted by the shutdown. I think that'd be a pretty cool idea. Um, yeah, and like you said, the whole raising awareness, that's the biggest one. Um, Boycott businesses that won't start speaking up, contact them and say you won't buy their products, shop, etc. Yeah, that's a good idea. Another thing that I saw uh, a week or two ago from right here on Substack. You guys should check him out. He's if you haven't already, his name is Christopher Armitage. Uh, he put some really good stuff out there. And one idea that he had that I have not seen people talk much about is that most politicians out there, they when they get donations, when they get large donors that send the money for their campaign and whatnot, that is actually public information, right? So what that means is that if you live in a blue state and your governor is not doing enough, your attorney general is not doing enough, you can go find out who their biggest donors were, and you can then reach out to your attorney general or to your governor, via social media or whatever, call their office and say, hey, here are the biggest donors you have. If you guys aren't going to be doing the right thing, we're going to start bothering your donors and saying, hey, why are you donating to this guy that won't do the right thing, who's basically collaborating or capitulating to the regime, right? So I think that's another pretty cool idea too. And that's all stuff that we all can do, right? That we don't need party leadership to do any of that. Um, so I think that'll be an interesting thing to consider doing. Um, has anybody here heard about that idea? What else? 1 second, I'm gonna pull something up. Yeah. Anyway, so another thing that I've been thinking about, and I don't know what you guys think about, is the whole Hegseth thing that he had with the generals, um, talking about, both him and Trump talking about essentially using the military within the country again, being brought up, but with the generals. Do you all think that they're actually going to follow orders like that? Because that's one thing that's been really be on my mind since that whole speech. Um, whether the military is actually going to refuse orders. I even put a post out on Blue Sky earlier talking about it, saying that I don't know who's going to be the last person in the military that will refuse an illegal order, but whoever does it first, their name is going to go down in history alongside Washington, Lincoln, and MLK, because there there is a lot hanging the balance right there, right? Whether they choose to follow an order to really go all out and use actual force against civilians, or if they actually stand up to the government and say, "No, we're not doing that." And even more importantly, if they're going to be doing that publicly as opposed to quietly, and just resign or sort of get fired by the military. Um, that's a big thing that's been on my mind. Um, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about that. And by the way, for everyone that joined recently, uh, welcome to the chat. Welcome to the live. And one thing that I'm doing that is not super common here on Substack, uh, I'm a bit of a nerd with computer stuff, is that if you want to join on voice chat, you can actually use that link in the bottom, lookme.com/join stream. And you can actually, if you have questions that you want to chat on voice, I'm totally open to that. I actually much rather talk to somebody on voice than to be kind of like talking to myself and reading the chat. So definitely welcome to do that. Yeah, the generals did look unimpressed. Somebody on Blue Sky brought up something interesting, which is that they have a conduct that they must follow. They have a code of conduct, so they're sort of like required to just chill. They can't clap, they can't stand up, they can't do anything like that. So it's kind of like really hard to measure um, whether they support what Trump and Hegseth were saying or not. I have to imagine that they don't. I have to imagine that a lot of people in that audience were pissed off that a drunkard who had run two nonprofits for veterans and screwed them over uh, was standing in front of them telling them what to do. But then at the same time, they do spend decades um, learning that they follow the civilian leadership, and whatever comes from the White House, they have to follow. Well, to a degree. So I I don't know how to feel about uh, I don't know how to feel about being confident of whether they're going to stand up to an illegal order or not. And another thing to think about that gives me concern and gives me pause, if you think about it, is there are generals in the National Guard, right? Some of those 4-star generals that were in that audience are the people that did follow the orders to be deployed to LA, that did follow the orders to be deployed to DC, that are now following the orders to be deployed to other cities. So it's not like these folks have not yet had an opportunity to defy an illegal order and we don't know what they're going to do. There have been at least some that received the illegal orders and followed them anyways. Granted, they were not ordered to kill any US citizens, and maybe that would be going too far. But to the degree that the orders were illegal, the orders to deploy for essentially law enforcement purposes to these cities were also illegal, and they followed them anyways. So I don't know. Would they actually refuse? Like, well, what's the red line that they're not willing to cross? That's where it gets me and worries me. Um, um, Joy, raising awareness and starting with each of us to not being afraid to speak out. I am over 70 and have never protested except for MLK once, and am now in the leadership. That's awesome. Number one, it's great that your leadership and all that. Uh, that's incredible, actually. Um, and I think it's awesome that so many people that had never done any kind of activism before are getting involved. And we need more people to get involved like that. Um, um, but how do we get more visibility, right? How do we get? I think that even the protests are hitting a little bit of a wall uh, in terms that they're almost kind of like they're hitting the same echo chamber wall that we kind of see um, with social media. Um, when you're protesting on the street, there's definitely going to be a lot of people that are going to see you locally, but the reach is still kind of like localized, right? It's so hard to get the exposure in the media because it's not even just legacy media. I feel like even new media is not really covering the protests that much, unless it's the new media that's on our side, that the people that already agree with us uh, are watching, so that we're not really really expanding our reach out there. So I don't know what the strategy is there that we could try and push for. Um, uh, I still keep sort of like wondering, uh, do we need to have more protests to push Democrats to try and do the right thing? I think that's I think one big thing that's definitely on my mind. I think it would be awesome to have something like the No Kings March, but instead of it being like No Kings, uh, where we're basically protesting against Trump, it'd be cool to have a protest where we're putting pressure on Democrats, like where we're cheering them on to do the right thing. It'd be cool to have, uh, you know, the pictures of the ones that have been doing great stuff to sort of like raise their profile, make them look like the leaders, you know. And if Schumer and Jeffries, if they're not going to do the right thing, we should like start treating the ones that are doing the right thing as the actual leaders of the party, uh, and to show that during the marches, right? So instead of it being sort of like a negative protest of what it is that we're against, to have a march that is about what it is that we are for. You know, I think that could be the thing that wakes them up, right? Because if like imagine Hakeem Jeffries um and Schumer seeing 5 million people on the streets with pictures of like um, Jasmine Crockett and Jamie Raskin and AOC, and nobody has their pictures out. I think that could be the kind of like wake up call that could turn things around. I think that would be a cool thing to see. Um, and I wonder how we could make that happen. Um, I don't know if any of you guys have any kind of contact with activist leadership. Um, I have a couple, but nothing too big. But I think that would be pretty cool to put on something like that. Um, and then, of course, another thing I wanted to talk about is just to kind of get some feedback from you guys. What do you think of the stuff that I've been putting out so far? You know, are there things that you think I should be covering that I'm not covering? Um, any kind of takes that you think that I've got wrong, something I could have done better. What do you guys think also of the maybe the latest thing I put out about uh, basically getting angry, right? Um, I really thought a lot about that one. I was a little worried that people could take it the wrong way. I hope that people won't. I'm not I'm calling for people to rage out or anything like that or do anything crazy, but I think that there is a lot of people that are feeling afraid, a lot of people who are feeling anxious, and a lot of people that are feeling paralyzed. And I think that a righteous kind of anger about all the thing that's being done, in the name of the United States, could be the emotion that kind of like jolts you out of that paralysis and that anxiety. I know that, at least personally, that's one thing that's kind of worked for me. Um, and and I think that it could work for others as well. Um, I don't know if any of you guys have any chance to think about that. Um, and if you haven't, think about that. And it's definitely something that I'm curious about. Um, and I think that those are the main things that were in my mind. I really wanted to hop on and kind of like chat about all these things. Um, I don't know if there's anything that you guys want to ask, and I'm definitely gonna try and do more of these on a more regular basis. I was gonna start doing more of it earlier in the year, but then I had some health issues. That's part of the reason I kind of like disappeared for a while. Got the autism diagnosis along with it, but yeah, I'm definitely planning to do more of these in the future. Could definitely use some practice. It's still a little bit awkward being live. I hope that you guys kind of had a good time and that it's something that you all be looking forward to, just like I am. Um, oh, hey PJ, you just got on. I'm getting ready to hop out. Um, I was just telling everyone that I'm planning to be doing a lot more of these lives in the future. So if you guys have questions, if you have things that you want to ask about, just keep them in mind. Um, I'm going to try and come up with uh, maybe something that you can submit via um, Substack. You can maybe submit questions ahead of time, and then I can cover them once I go live. Um, Never vote to fund a government that's waging war on its own citizens. 100%. That definitely goes without saying. I probably should have said that. Um, I really hope that Democrats will hold this shutdown as long as it takes to get some real concessions from this regime. I know that unfortunately there are going to be a lot of government workers that are going to suffer from the shutdown. But one thing that I was telling folks on Blue Sky earlier today is that I can't think of the life of any government worker that's going to be better if we fund the government and this fascist regime goes unabated. That would be better than a week or two of uncertainty from a shutdown. So I'm it's a hard thing to say, but um, I hope that that it's not for nothing. I hope that Democrats don't hold this out for a really long time and then get no concessions and then they capitulate. I think that is the worst case scenario. Um, so I think it's extremely important for us to pressure them to make sure that they get real concessions. Joy, another No Kings rally with speakers and a march on October 18th at 2 to 4 p.m. Yeah, I'm aware of that one. Details are still being worked out. I am righteously angered and now have joined a leadership position with Gen Z Resistance Indivisible team. Come out of your AIC and Jasmine Crockett signs. Um, yeah, for sure. Talk to your Indivisible team. Maybe you guys can do some signs for like the folks that you support. Try to make it more about what you're for and less about what you're against. I think that could be a thing that turns things around. And thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, and thank you for your support too. You've given me a lot of kind comments on all the different posts. A lot of the names here, I actually remember them from all the great comments. So I definitely appreciate those. Um, I'm going to hop out for the night. I am going to try and do this at least a few times a week. Um, for anybody that's still here, if you're not subscribed, subscribe. If you're able to support with a paid subscription, please do. It helps a lot. Um, and I will see you next time.